Hello everyone, welcome to the Health OK Please podcast. I'm Yagyadat Sharma, a member of NSS Bits Pilani and also your host for today's episode, which is titled You Too Can Save a Life, where we will discuss common medical emergencies which might occur in day-to-day life and how we can respond to them. Our esteemed guest for this episode is Rajesh R. Trivedi, the co-founder and managing trustee of Alert. He is a management professional with extensive consultancy experience in IT transformation across businesses to global corporate houses. A firm believer in generating value, whether business or social, he has been mentored by the greatest minds in strategic thinking, from the Tuck School of Business, Dartmouth, USA, and Sri Satya Sai Institute of Higher Learning, India. Welcome, sir. It's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you, Agnya. Thanks for the kind introduction. My pleasure too to join you this morning.
Very good morning, sir. Can you please tell us something about the work you do with Alert?
Yeah, definitely, Agnya. Thanks for bringing that up. So today I represent this organization co-founded by me called Alert, Amenity Lifeline Emergency Response Team, which is focused on building capacity and empowering and training common people in the space of emergency response, emergency care. If you look at the state in which our country is, whether it be road traffic accidents or a number of people losing lives to cardiac emergencies, number of people losing lives to strokes, number of people losing lives to so many other emergencies. While India has one of the best tertiary healthcare system in the world, somewhere we are heavily lacking on the basic life support space. So from the time an event occurs till professional help arrives, there is a huge lack of help that should ideally naturally happen. Um, so 15 years back in 2006, when I and Ms. Kala Balasundaram, the founder of this organization, used to work in an IT organization here in Chennai, we used to see these accidents happening almost on a weekly basis, and most times it could be fatal, and it could be the breadwinner of that family, because somebody who's sitting lying on the road is anywhere between the age group of 25 to 35, right? And then even in organizations and workplaces, we just saw that there were so many occurrences of emergencies, and it just so happened that even in our own experience, we encountered a person having a cardiac arrest, and nobody just couldn't even read the situation, didn't know what exactly to be done, right? So if you just extrapolate this, India is number two right now as far as road traffic accidents are concerned. India is being called the sudden cardiac arrest capital of the world. We are number two right now. We will soon be number one. And these are titles we don't want. And that's exactly what Alert is here to do, to sort of empower people, common people, because it is common people who are at the scene until professional help arrives. The professional help could be a doctor, could be an ambulance, could be a paramedic. But that first 20 minutes to 30 minutes to 1 hour makes a huge difference. So Alert is in this mission of the training one in every family. The goal set for us by the legendary former president of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam. And so far, we have reached out in that direction. We have reached out to about 150,000 people so far through our programs, and marching steadily forward. On the other side, while we train people, we also work with the other stakeholders in the emergency care ecosystem, such as the government, for better policies in this space, hospitals, so that they sort of act after an emergency has been handled in a much more efficient manner. Judiciary, police, everybody, so that finally life needs to be saved, and that's the motto.
Right.
So that's been Alert's journey, and I'm very glad to speak to you on the eve of, we're just going to complete 15 years on October the 2nd. So I always get excited to talk to young communities and students such as you. Like I still recall the wonderful words by the former president, Dr. Kalam, and I asked him, sir, what gives you the confidence that we are in the right direction? And he said, young minds and young students give me the confidence. I'm extremely happy that I'm interacting with the future of this country. Thank you, Agnya.
Thank you, sir, and congratulations on the 15 years. The work
Thank you.
is really inspiring and noble. So, sir, to begin with the discussion on medical emergencies, firstly, we'll go about heart attack and heart failure. What is
Okay.
the difference between heart attack and heart failure?
Okay. Yeah. So as I was speaking in my introduction, uh, the cardiac emergencies are one of the silent killers, as far as at least the whole world is concerned, and specifically something of concern in India. As I said, we are number two. I think close to about 4,280 people for every lakh of population succumb to cardiac arrest in India. And the survival rate is not even worth mentioning. It is as good as 0%. Okay. So, and it is important. The question is quite relevant because many times people confuse between what is a heart attack, what is a heart failure, what is a cardiac arrest. We read in newspapers somebody had a cardiac arrest. Somewhere else we hear that somebody had a heart attack. So, what is the primary difference between the two? It's a very fundamental difference. Both eventually is related to the heart, but the very, very fundamental difference between the two is while cardiac arrest is more a neural issue. When I say neural issue, there is a nerve that is responsible for giving an electrical impulse to the heart to pump, the action of pumping, so that which ends up in circulating the blood. That gets affected, and that's cardiac arrest. Whereas a heart attack is more about the circulation of the blood itself. There is a block or there is a obstruction in the passage of the blood freely flowing through the body. Okay. Now, the question here you asked me is specifically heart attack and heart failure. So, how does that get differentiated? Is very simple. Now, the heart pumps blood, and this pumped blood gets distributed across the body. If there is an obstruction in the flow of that blood to the rest of the body, that leads to heart failure. That's called a heart failure. It happens gradually. It happens over a period of time. Okay. Now the blood that goes to the rest of the body comes back into the heart for a replenishment, right? And also the heart pumps blood to its own self, oxygenated blood to its own self, so that the heart muscles function. Now, when oxygenated blood does not reach the heart itself, that is called a heart attack, right? So, simply put, when the blood not reaching the heart itself is a heart attack. The blood reaching the heart itself
Sir,
subtle
you might have a
difference between a heart
connection issue.
failure. I hope that sort of.
Okay, sir. The next question is, what are the initial signs and symptoms of a heart attack?
Okay. Yeah, so this is very, very important because most times if you read the symptoms and the signs right up front, right, you can take some very remedial actions, as I said, which can be very, very significant for end of the day, putting the person in the path of recovery, right? So a person who is under a heart attack could have one or many of these following symptoms. Okay. So the person, you will suddenly see that he is becoming breathless. Okay. There is a breathlessness, and because there is an obstruction of flow of blood from and to the heart, the person might feel a huge congestion in the chest area, right? He suddenly, his hands go to, he clenches to his chest like that, and it's a universal sign. Most of the people who are having a heart attack, you will see that they are taking their hands towards the chest because there is a huge congestion in the chest area, right? And the fresh oxygenated blood that flows out of the heart, right, goes down, and it comes out of the left chambers of the heart, right? So because of any obstruction, most times the signal that there is a problem is can be read when there is some kind of a pain, or sometimes even very excruciating pain, when there is a pain that goes through the left arm. Okay. Because the blood is coming out of the left chambers, and that is having an obstruction. Okay. That could be one sign or a symptom. The other one is sudden sweating, right? The person now the because the blood is not oxygenated, blood is not reaching the rest of the body. There is a pressure increase in the body, and there is a heat in the body, and because the body now needs to cool down, the body's mechanism to cool it down is to increase the sweat, right? So sort of there is a sudden increase in sweating, or somebody just simply complains of extreme fatigue all of a sudden. right? All of a sudden, because oxygenated blood is not reaching, there can be extreme fatigue, or the person could complain of nausea, vomiting. Now, these are all some of the symptoms, right? So you have to find a combination of these. Somebody is holding your chest and say suddenly the person starts coughing. Then you have to immediately take them to the hospital.
Excuse me, sir. You might have a network issue. Uh, the voice is lagging. Hello.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. So, sir, my next question is, what first response should be provided to a person suffering from heart attack or heart failure?
Okay. Um, See, the first thing is the moment you have a doubt, moment there is a suspicion, right? First trigger of the ambulance mechanisms, okay? Because it's going to take time for the ambulance to reach the location. So you got to ensure that you are calling off the ambulance at the earliest. So make a call to the ambulance, and in the meantime, right, they're going to be, I don't know, maybe about 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes for the ambulances to arrive. So there is a position called a W position that you can make a person sit into, right? So it is simply sitting comfortably on the ground, or faced against the wall, or you could lend your legs so that there is support. The person leans back, with that support, and with the knee bent, right? Now you sit like it's like this. So the person sits here and then bends his leg at the knee, right? So this forms a W position of the body. So thereby, what happens is it sort of brings your scope of the heart's functioning of blood to the body only to the torso part of the body, right? So make the person sit in W position, and at that point in time, don't offer anything to drink or eat, or don't have activity going on. So do not. One of the things that happens is people straight away go jump and give water, right? Do not engage the person in any further activity. No eating and no drinking at that point in time. There could be, as I said, there's a congestion around the body, so loosen the clothing a little bit so that the person gets some air, and don't make the person walk, or even if the ambulance arrives, even if the car is out there, don't make the person walk all the way. Put him under strain, if possible, lift the person and take him, and or you sort of wait until the professional help arrives and take the person on a chair, on a wheelchair, or on a stretcher and things like that, right? So no exertion. So the person tries to exert, then the heart tries to beat faster, right? And it succumbs himself to tremendous pressure. And in case the person collapses, then you have to be ready to deliver what's called CPR, cardiopulmonary resuscitation, which is a technique that is known to mankind, the best available technique known to mankind today, that can that can sort of become the proxy for your heart and your vitals, and it can keep the vitals going until such time more professional intervention is possible. So these are some of the things that you could do. A person having a heart attack, somewhere in your vicinity. And one last thing: if you know that the person has had a history of cardiac arrest or history of heart attack, and he has been prescribed blood thinners. Okay, in India, blood thinners are not available off the counter. But if you know the person and the person has been prescribed a blood thinner like an aspirin, then based on the prescription, then you can probably use a blood thinner.
All right, sir. So, coming to fractures, if a person has an
Mhm.
injury, how to identify if they might have a fracture or not?
Okay, fractures again, very very common, that happens in a household, or you're out playing a game. It could happen on a field and anywhere, right? It's just basically you fall, or it is a breakage of bone. First of all, fracture is, you need to understand that it happens to the bone structures, right? So if there is a breakage of bone, then that's a fracture. How to identify there is a fracture? Of course, the person who is the victim, one is going to have experience immense pain, and is going to complain of pain when that part of the bone has experienced a fracture, and you're trying to move that part of the body. It could be, most times it is the long bones, right? It could be the hand bones or the leg bones. So the long bones are the ones that can succumb to the fracture. So one is the immense pain, you're trying to move the body or move that part. Second is there could be swelling, right? So if it is visible to the eye, then the part of the body that has had a fracture, you could see some swelling. The if in case there is a internal bleeding that's got kicked off because there was a fracture, then you will see that the skin starts turning blackish blue, right? The external parts of the skin will start turning blackish blue, and you know that then that could be a fracture. Or if it's a very severe fracture, meaning the bone is completely broken into two, and you might even see a deformity. When I say a deformity, it's protruding out, it's tearing the skin and showing up outside. Right? That's a very severe case of a fracture where it is the whole bone is broken and it is moved outside and it is showing as a deformity in your eyes. Right. So these are some symptoms. These are some signs that the person has had a fracture, and the severity of it is based upon how deep the damage is, how bad the damage is.
All right, sir. So, how should a person be fracture be handled? How should a person with fracture be handled?
Okay. Um, See, we'll have to understand that the, as I said, the fracture is a broken bone is a broken bone. Okay, you can't right now immediately put the bone back into place, and like how it doesn't happen like how they probably show in some movies, where they pull the ball and socket joints. They pull the
Sir,
right. Yeah.
sir, your voice is lagging
Hear me?
a bit. Hello. Hello. Am I audible, sir?
Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are now.
Can I continue? What do you
Sir, could you, if I could repeat this question again,
suggest?
because the voice was lagging.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. Sure.
okay,
Sure.
sir. So, how should a
One
person with,
second. I don't know whether is it my.
yes, sir, it could be a network issue.
Yeah.
Okay, sir. So, how should a person with fracture be handled?
Right. Okay. So in the event of a fracture, we need to understand that see, a broken bone is a broken bone. You're not going to be able to immediately ensure that the broken bone is put back in its place. It needs time to heal, right? But as a responder who is there at the scene of a incident where there is a fracture, the very first thing you got to ensure is that the place is immobilized. The person should not be able to move that part further, should not be able to move that part very easily, so that even if there is a minor crack, then because the person is trying to move the part, it becomes a full-fledged fracture, right? So to avoid that, you got to ensure that the person's that part of the body does not move. There are very simple techniques to do that. You can use your the shirt or a t-shirt to make a sling, so that if it's a hand, then you can put the t-shirt or the hand into the t-shirt as a sling. Or you can take a rectangular piece of cloth and make a sling out of it, and you can temporarily arrest that part of the body from moving. So there is a technique, easy to remember. There's a technique called RICE, RICE. Okay, it's easy to recall, something that anybody can note down and saying, okay, if it's a fracture, then RICE needs to be applied. What does RICE stand for? R stands for rest. Okay, the meaning the person needs to be immobilized and should not go any further, especially that part of the body where the person is pain, or the bone is broken. The person needs to rest. Okay, immobilize. You can make the sling, arrest that part of the body from moving, and make the rest. Number two is eyes. RCEI. I stand for applying ice. Basically, the ice is applied so that it sort of gives a very temporary relief from pain. So cold compress, as they say. Make an ice pack. Don't try and apply ice directly, but make an ice pack and use that ice pack to give so that once every 20 minutes you can use the ice pack to enable the person some relief, okay, out of pain. Third is compress. When you say compress, the swelling can happen. So if you make an ice pack, the ice pack not just on the bone that is bleeding, around it and stuff like that, you can compress a bit, okay, so that it sort of arrests your swelling. And E stands for elevate. When you say elevate, it is like if a person can be sitting down, and you ensure that that part of the body, if it's a hand or if it is a leg, keep it above the level of the heart, primarily so that more blood reaches that heart, more the swelling can happen, and more the sensation of pain. For a brief while, if there is a little reduced flow of blood to that region, then you help the person from a temporary relief of pain. So elevating that part will be helpful. So you can remember a very simple word: RICE, RICE, rest, ice, compress, and elevate for fracture.
All right, sir. So, sir, apart from that, what else can be done initially to reduce pain?
Yeah, so I think I've sort of covered that. The sensation of pain can be handled by using ice packs, right?
Okay.
So two things is going to ensure it reduces pain. One, the part of the body is ensured that it is immobile. You are not able to further move that body, that part of
Okay.
the broken bone. So that will not cause pain. Number two is usage of ice packs, so that it sort of helps in reducing the experience of pain.
Okay, sir. So, sir, coming to electrocution, how to treat a person who has had an electric shock?
Okay, okay. So electric shock again is a very domestic thing that can happen. It can happen industrial, it can happen domestic, it can happen at homes and stuff like that. See, when usually, when there is an electric shock, the person, the responder who is helping has to be additionally careful, because we all know that a person who is conducting electricity or exposed to electricity will continue. He will himself become a conductor, right? So he is going to pass on the electricity to you, right? So while the intent to help is great, but at the same time, you have to be way too careful when you get onto the scene to handle somebody who is having an electrocution, right? So for that, the very first thing, right? This generally people don't speak about this, but the very first thing you will have to do is to take a few seconds of a conscious gap in your own mind as a responder, right? So don't jump into action and go hold the person's body. You're also going to get electrocuted, right? So just that one conscious second of gap to ensure your safety becomes paramount while trying to help a person in an electrical shock. Okay. The next best thing one should do is cut off the source of the electricity. That's the most safest. Okay. The most safest is go to the mains and switch off the mains. Okay. So that's like foolproof. It is not, you are not taking a risk, and you are also not taking the victim is also not taking any risk. So it's the electricity source gets cut off, and the naturally the passing of electricity comes to a standstill. If at all, if that's not possible, I do not know this, and you need to touch the person and do something, then you can only wood, all right, only Conducting material that sandals come, there is some kind of a non-conducting in between, and of
Uh, Sir, your voice was lagging again, just a little bit. Hello?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. The
Is
network seems poor a bit.
fluctuating.
Yes, sir. Sir, so
Good
going
now?
to the, sir, could you like say one sentence if it's all right?
Yeah. Right. So I was speaking about electrocution. So you got to cut the source of electricity, the main source of electricity, and number two, you touch the person only with some non-conducting material such as wood or wear sandals and stuff like that. If the person has gone unconscious, be ready to sort of check his vitals, and you might need to kickstart the basic life support principles, and even probably if required do a CPR, but only after you ensure that the complete electrical exposure to electricity has been taken care of.
Sir, so nowadays deaths due to electrocution are increasing. So, what special precautions should be taken to avoid it?
Uh, yeah, so electrocution is a subject matter of you know being connected to a person who is already electrocuted. Okay, in terms of precautions, you should not present yourself in regions that you are even doubtful that there could be a source of electricity which is exposed. Right, it could be a wire which is not fully connected and exposed. It could be the building that is not having a earthing done properly. So those are all some things that you should definitely try and avoid getting yourself exposed. The most silent killer when it comes to electrocution is water, right? If the place is wet and you know that there could be some electrical lines passing through it, right? Then that's a very, very silent but a massive killer, because of course water passes on electricity much faster, and so the in homes, specifically in homes, water seeps through the walls, right? Sometimes there's heavy rains, water seeps through the walls, and the circuit boards are now concealed within the walls, right? So you got to be very sure that if you see some wet patches on the walls right around the electricity, the board, right, then don't even attempt, trying to switch on, switch off, and expose yourself to open sockets or any hanging wires and stuff like that. So domestically, these are things that you should be mindful of. Of course, when it comes to industries, there are much larger and wider measures one needs to take to ensure that there is no large-scale electrical accidents that can happen.
So now regarding bleeding, how to stop
Uh-huh.
continuous bleeding in different parts of the body?
Okay. So bleeding can, broadly bleeding can be of two types, right? One is internal bleeding and external bleeding, right? And internal bleeding, very little can be done because most times we can't even read there is internal bleeding, unless and until the person suddenly complains of abnormal thirst, right? Or the internal bleeding itself will leading to clotting, that it appears blackish blue from the outside, right? But that apart, on external bleeding, there are many things that can be done. First is you have to arrest the source of the bleeding, right? Take a clean piece of cloth, okay, dry clean piece of cloth, and which is non-sticky, non-adhesive, right? And take that piece of cloth and apply on the region where the blood is coming out, right? So basically, in an external bleeding, the it is the there you will see that there it is the opening is there visible on the skin, right? So you take the clean piece of cloth, non-adhesive piece of cloth, put it on the region where it is bleeding, apply pressure. So when you apply pressure, what happens is that it sort of arrests the bleeding, and you are enabling the process of clotting. Okay, so the process of clotting starts from the topmost layer of the blood, okay, and it goes in the reverse direction. So when you do this, you are enabling clotting. The most another very commonsensical thing that you need to do is, once you have arrested the bleeding using cloth, elevate that part of the body above the level of the heart. Okay, so the rate of flow of blood to that part of the body which is bleeding is reduced. So what is happening is, more blood that is supposed to go there and come out through the opening, the rate of flow is reduced. On the other side, you are applying pressure using a clean piece of cloth, thereby enabling clotting. In a few minutes, you will see that the blood will stop coming out. Right? So you would have arrested the bleeding, right? So very simple stuff. Just remember some of these very simple things. Take a clean piece of cloth, non-sticky cloth, apply on the region where it is bleeding, elevate that part of the body above the level of the heart. Simple. If there is a foreign object or something that is pierced, okay, don't try and remove that object. Remove the object only under professional supervision, because while removing the object, you might inadvertently cause more damage. Okay, in that case, what you do is apply some pressure 1 or 2 inches above the part of that above that region where it is bleeding. Okay, without disturbing that particle which is out there, right? So simple ways of handling a bleeding are these.
All right, sir. So now coming to insect bites. What
Uh-huh.
is the best home remedy for insect bites?
Okay. Yeah, of course, quite common again in India. Even in the most cleanest of places, somehow we attract insects, right? It could be mosquitoes, it could be bee, it could be anything, right? So you ask for home remedies, right? First of all, any bites, right? It could be even a dog bite, okay, or even an insect bite, or whatever bite it is, okay. Wash that part with clean soap for about 5-10 minutes first. Okay, put it under water, running water. Use apply soap, antiseptic, and wash that part, because you do not know, what's the other kind of exposures that could have happened, and you sort of just to ensure that you are not triggering off any allergic reactions, specifically on the skin. You first cleanly wash that part. Okay. Other home remedies are, you can use most homes do have honey. You can use some honey to apply on that part of the body, so that it sort of reduces the inflammation, and it also acts as a it doesn't allow for further septic to be formed. You can use aloe vera, right? So that's again something which is available. When people do these days, I think they grow aloe vera at homes. So aloe vera is good. Basil is good, right? Tulsi leaves. So you can use tulsi leaf for ensuring that the itching sensation can be controlled, and stuff like that. Or you can also use baking powder, right? Just immerse some baking powder in water, make a paste out of it, and apply it on the region where it is where the bite is there. Even turmeric is good. It has healing properties in it, and you can once again wet the turmeric a little bit, and so that it becomes a paste, and use the turmeric. So these are at hand, immediately available at home, right? Only thing, make sure that, unfortunately, I want to emphasize on this, is make sure that your turmeric is pure turmeric. What happens is, in our kitchens, they have the habit of having one thali in which there will be pepper, there will be chili, there will be turmeric in small cups, right? So if you look at your mom in the kitchen, she will use the same hand for turmeric, and same hand for pepper, same hand for chili. So the turmeric is not pure turmeric. There will be a little bit of chili in it, a little bit of pepper in it, right? So that will increase the sensation of burn and itching, right? So if you're using some of these, just ensure that they are in the most cleanest forms that you can get to. So some home remedies for insect bites.
And sir, how do you know if a bite is poisonous?
Okay, how do you know if a bite is poisonous? So whatever I told till now is primarily, it's just itching, and there's nothing really happening beyond that. Okay, but in case of a very poisonous sting, right? So some kind of a poison has been injected, right? So how do we know that some such thing can happen? Is if after a bite, okay, if after a bite you are able to see that there is suddenly a rapid swelling in some of these regions, lips, the tongue, throat area, or around your eyes, right? These are all some very sensitive places, right? So you suddenly see that there is some rapid swelling because after the insect sting, right? Or it starts hitting the vitals. When I say vitals, suddenly they start finding difficulty for breathing, right? So moment a vital gets impacted after a sting, that's a problem. Severe itching, right? You start seeing rashes, right? Reddish rashes and hives, right? So it sort of starts having allergic reaction on your skin, increases numbness on your body. Suddenly you become start feeling numb in that area, right? Or suddenly lose consciousness also. So some of these are indicators that the bite has not been just a normal bite. It probably is a poisonous bite. Seek professional help.
Sir, so coming to fainting, what are the most common reasons for fainting?
Okay. Um, Again, fainting happens, very, very common. Rather than the causes, right? See, the cause can be anything. When I say a cause can be anything, the person might have low blood pressure, or the person might have high blood pressure, or it could be because the person had a cardiac arrest, had a heart attack, or it could be as simple a thing as he did not have his breakfast in the morning or did not eat for one full day. That then also he could faint, or simply the summer is approaching, so the person is out there in tremendous hot conditions, and he gets dehydrated and he faints. Right. So the cause and the common reasons for fainting can be anything. But in all this, there is one common thing that happens. One thing that happens in common, and that is the person faints because, okay, there is a lack of oxygenated blood reaching the brain. Okay, so a person is conscious as long as his brain cells are active, right? So brain cells are active as long as proper oxygenated blood is having a continuous supply to the brain. So anytime there is a lack of a flow of oxygenated blood consistently to the brain, that's when it triggers off fainting, right? So that's the most common thing as a lay person we need to understand. We actually don't even need to worry about what caused the fainting. What happens during fainting is the person is now not receiving enough oxygenated blood, and you have to take remedial measures so that more oxygenated blood reaches the head, reaches the brain. And you'll see that in about 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, the person starts coming around simply because there is more oxygenated blood reaching the brain.
Okay, sir. So it is observed that extreme hot days of summer cause fainting. So what precautions can be taken to avoid it?
Yeah, very true. So as I was telling, one of the things why so it can make a person faint is heat itself, right? So it starts off at probably a heat exhaustion, and then if not attended, then it becomes heat cramps, and then probably it becomes a heat stroke, right? That's the order in which it starts becoming severe, right? So precautions, if you ask me, then naturally. Do not expose yourself to overheat, meaning don't be out there in the sun for too long, number one. Not just being out there in the sun, exerting yourself in a lot of physical activity in the heat, under the heat, directly exposed under heat, right? That's something if you can avoid, you should try and avoid that from happening, so that it leads to a situation of fainting. Hydrate, keep yourself hydrated, right? Large amounts of water. You don't need anything. It's the elixir of life, right? Large amounts of drinking water. Keep your body hydrated, right? The moment you know that today you're going to step out in the hot sun, you're going to go out and needing to be out there, then it doesn't work like this. Okay, today entire day I'm going to be out, so let me have 4 liters of water in the morning itself, and then rest of the day I will spend out in the day. No, it doesn't work like that. Within no time you will start feeling like you need to urinate, right? So that you have to keep hydrating throughout the day, little by little by little by little, right? So that 4 liters of 3 liters of water you can have, but spread it across. Have little by little, little by little of water throughout the day, right? Avoid alcohol when it specifically if you're going to be having great physical activity out there in the sun. Avoid all any other vigorous physical activities. So hot summer days, simple. These are very very simple things that one should be mindful of.
So overall speaking, can fainting be considered a symptom of any major disease?
Yes, I would say yes. Not a major disease, but it is an indicator to you that something is really not normal to a person. The cause could be anything, as I said. If they diagnose and go back to the cause, it could be, as I said, the diagnosis might show up a sugar issue. The diagnosis might show up a heart issue. Diagnosis can show up any other issue. But then the moment a person is fainting, it is an indicator about the fact that something is obstructing blood to the brain, and that's not to be ignored, right? Uh, so you got to immediately go for a checkup and ensure that you have arrested or you have addressed the cause for why a person is fainting.
Okay, so coming to seizures, how to
Mhm.
identify if someone is having a seizure?
Okay. Uh, so there's somebody having a seizure again, quite common. You will see that the person is convulsing. Most of the time, seizures are the convulsive seizures, so fits as they call it in colloquial terms, right? So you will see that the person's body is throwing up. The body is completely they're jerking. The body is throwing up. The person could have, before getting into the seizure attack or the fits attack, just a few minutes or a few seconds before that, would have let out a huge cry, okay? Or he could have let out a huge cry, a shout out, and then he gets into fit state, okay? So that's something you have to be watchful for. The other thing is there is froth coming out of the mouth, right? There is because he is shaking, the saliva in the body is it's like it's being jerked inside your mouth, and then the froth starts coming out of your mouth. So these are some of the that, okay. The other thing is you're trying to talk to him, he is not going to respond to you for anything, okay? Because he's not able to process any messaging, he's not able to process at all anything that you're speaking, anything that you're giving him, not able to hold to anything that you're trying to give him or her, right? So some of these are symptoms. The most popular and visible symptom is the body throwing up and the froth coming out.
Okay, sir. So what to do if someone has a seizure?
Okay. Yeah. So I'll probably touch upon uh, immediate what not to do first, because most of the times that's what people do, and then come to what to do. Right. So what happens is people immediately rush to the person having a fits episode, and they try and give a keychain or a key or anything metal, iron. Right. They try and insert that into the person's hand so that they can hold on to it and convulse. Right. That needs to be avoided, right? There is somehow a myth that if you hold on to steel or iron, the fits subsides. Okay, specifically if you go to rural areas, this belief is very high, right? They don't even give some small keys. They sometimes give sickles. They give crowbars. Okay, to the person who is convulsing, and that's very very dangerous. Okay, you should not do that. Uh, so don't give any metallic substances. Any metal substances don't give. Sharp objects specifically should not give. Right. Sometimes people also go use a cloth and gag their mouth. Right. They'll insert cloth into the mouth and hold that for some time there. What happens is the person will have a tendency for the tongue to reach the teeth, and because he is convulsing, it is so strong that sometimes they may even bite their own tongue, or sometimes even so hard that the tongue can itself get cut. To avoid that, what people do is take a cloth and gag. Okay. All that is actually not required, and it's quite dangerous also. One thing is, when you're wanting to help somebody having fits, okay? Now, fits is happening inside the person's body. It's a messaging mechanism gone completely wrong, okay? So, world over, fits has been observed to be, not lasting more than about 10 minutes or max of 8 to 10 minutes, okay? So what you do is, do not present yourself from the front when you want to help a fits victim. What happens is, in case he gets hold of you, you will also convulse along with him because his grip is so strong. Okay, so try and do all the support on the side of the head or from the behind. Okay, so what you do is, let the person convulse, fits. It will automatically subside. Okay, remove any sharp objects that are around the person's. There could be a table, there could be a chair, or there could be flower pots, whatever. Remove all the sharp objects that could further injure him. Okay. Two is, the froth that is coming out. If you can slightly, make the person lie to the side, right? Just tilt the head a little bit so that if you lie to the side, the froth comes out and comes out of the body into the ground. Okay, rather than it, going backwards, and it can choke the person. So that the froth should not flow back inside. The froth has to flow out. Okay, so that's one thing you should definitely look for doing, right? And then take note of, don't try and hold his hands and legs as they are convulsing. Disperse the crowd. Don't allow for, let more air come into the person's. Let the person breathe some fresh air. That's something you got to you got to allow to happen. Take note of how long the fits episode lasted. Okay, that's some useful information for the doctor. Okay, because world over there has not been much of a progress in terms of a specific treatment as such for arresting fits. As I said, it's a messaging mechanism gone wrong. The brain is suddenly now handling some 1,000 to 10,000 instructions and not knowing how to execute them. That's when a person gets into a state of fits. So fits will automatically, but body is designed in such a way that the fits will automatically subside, because just like how we all use our phones, right? There are some, like, we open up and we end up opening some 100 applications on our phone, and our phone hangs. Okay, and we just don't know what to do with it. What do we do generally most of the time? We just switch it off and switch it on, or we do a control alt del on our systems, right? Because there are too many applications open. Body is being designed in such a way that if fits happens, body is designed in such a way that it does a control alt del on itself. Okay, and it sort of shuts down completely. That's why if you see that a person who had fits will sleep for a long time after the episode, and he'll sleep so peacefully. When he wakes up, right, he would have even forgotten that he had an episode of fits. Okay, that's how deeply he sleeps. But after a person wakes up, go talk to him. Talk to him very reassuringly. Try and help him recall. Sometimes that sleep can be a little, what do you call, the memory file that he had fits can be totally removed from his head. Okay, so just help him recall the immediate past happenings as to where was he going, what happened. Does he, just give him, talk to him so that he recalls some of his personal stuff, all right, day-to-day stuff. So these are simple things. Advise others not to look at somebody who had fits as like some alien, right? It's a very normal phenomena. It happens to anybody, and it can subside, and there's nothing wrong about the person. So wrong that you need to the people sort of look at the person in a very odd way. So it's becoming a social stigma, right? So there's no reason for that. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay, sir. So coming to head or spine injuries, how do you treat a head injury at home?
Head injury at home. Okay. So if the injury happened in front of your eyes, you know that the person hit against something on a wall, right, or anywhere, right? Look for if there is any bleeding. If there is any bleeding, the bleeding could be primarily also because it's not a very severe injury. It's just a scalp that got injured, and the skin, it starts bleeding. So you can arrest the bleeding, just like the way we spoke about bleeding. Take a clean piece of cloth, put it on the region where it is bleeding, and you have the person sit upright, elevated, right? As I said, any case of bleeding, the part that is bleeding, if it is above the level of the heart, it is beneficial, and head is naturally above the level of the heart, right? So if the person is bleeding on the head, it's good for the person to be sitting upright. Just give him some support, but let him sit upright. Now, he could be conscious when all this is happening. In a way, it is good. If the person is conscious, keep talking to him reassuringly, right? And in case he goes unconscious, that's where you got to be careful. Okay, strictly no movement. Okay, after a head injury, if the person goes unconscious, don't move the person because you just do not know what other damage you will cause. Okay, wait for the professional help to arrive. No shifting the person from location A to location B without proper support. Most importantly, head injury and the person is also unconscious. Give enough support to the neck. Give enough support to the back. Okay, so when I say the neck, because that's where the spinal column is going, and you do not want to further damage the spinal column. Even if the person is lying unconscious, just ensure that there is enough support. Put a pillow, right, put two pillows right around the neck so that the head is not moving. And use anything that ensures that there is a adequate padding available for the neck and the spinal column not to move. Okay, and in case if he's unconscious and now there is a BLS procedure of ensuring to do what is called a cap check. When I say cap check, it means circulation, airway, and breathing check. And if the vitals are not okay, then you'll have to kick off what is called a BLS procedure. The procedure all the way goes up to the CPR.
Okay, sir. So, what should you take care of after a head injury?
Yeah, so it's during and after. Most of what I said holds good for after a head injury. Look out if he's conscious, talk to him. If he's unconscious, don't move the victim at all. If the person is bleeding, arrest the bleeding. It's okay if you make the person sit upright. If he's lying down in an unconscious state, then ensure that there is enough padding around the neck and the spinal column. So after the head injury, you got to be watchful of all of this. Vitals, check the vitals, and if the vitals meaning breathing, airway, and circulation, if they are okay, then we are not in a very dangerous situation. But if they are not okay, then vitals have to be maintained. Vitals have to be preserved by doing all the minimum measures that you need to do to ensure that the vitals are okay. Definitely trigger off the ambulance system. Because as I said, in our country, it takes about 20 to 25 minutes for the ambulance to reach. And then seek professional help.
So, what are the symptoms of spinal cord injury and what should be done to handle it?
Okay, spinal cord injury again. Somebody's had a fall, or somebody's had and sometimes you are not sure whether a person's spinal column is injured. Some of the symptoms is extreme pain in the back. Okay, the person is complaining of extreme pain in the back, or there is a pressure around the neck region. Right, the neck region warms up suddenly. There is a neck starts warming up, and there is an extreme pressure in the neck region or the head or the back. That's one. There is sudden weakness in trying to move the parts of the body. Right. For example, the person is conscious. The person wants to lift his leg, but is unable to lift his leg. The person wants to move his hand, but is unable to move his hand. That's because there is some disruption in the messaging mechanism. So brain is trying to send that message to that part of the body, but it is not reaching that part of the body. And then you know that then probably there is a problem with the, could be a problem with the spine, okay? Or loss of bladder or bowel control, right? Suddenly the person loses control over his bowel movement, or suddenly a person loses control over his bladder movements, right? But that's also because problem of it could be a spinal injury, and impaired breathing. There could be impaired breathing, or it could be even there is a oddly position or a twisted back or a twisted neck, which is like physically visible to you, right? So these are all some symptoms. These are all some symptoms. There is the person sometimes is conscious, is able to see you, is able to even sometimes speak, but is unable to do anything with the rest of the body. Then you can be 200% suspicious of the fact that there could be a spinal injury, right? So it needs to be very, very immediately attended, very sensitively handled, absolutely no movement.
Right, sir. Sir, so up next, what are the signs of a stroke?
What are the signs of a stroke? Okay. Now, in the beginning of this session, we spoke about obstruction to lack of flow of blood to the regions of the body that leads to a heart attack or a cardiac arrest or a heart failure. Now, stroke occurs primarily because there is oxygenated blood not reaching the brain. Okay. Now, because it's not reaching the brain continuously for over, let's say, 3 minutes to 6 minutes, that's when it starts ending up in being a stroke. Okay. How do you know the person is having a stroke? Now, that's the question, right? So you see a person, the person is like, there's no movement in the person, but the person seems to be having his eyes open. And how do you know it's a stroke? There is a very, very simple technique for testing it. It is called FAST, FAST. Okay. F standing for the face, right? So you look at the person's face. Okay. If you see a drooping in the face, or if you see if the person is complaining of numbness, or if you see that the face is drooping in any direction, okay, then it could be the very first sign of a stroke. When I say drooping, it could be like, we all know this, the left part of the brain controls the right part of the body, right part of the brain controls the left part of the body, right? So let's say the blood which is going to the left part of the brain is obstructed and there is a stroke. So the symptoms could be more on the right side of the body, right? So it's like you'll see a droop on the face. You'll see a droop on the face towards the right. The face can go like this, right? Right, and the eyes shrink and your lips go this way, right? So there is a droop on this side or droop on this side, right? So look at the face and if there's a numbness, then ask the arms in the FAST test, okay? F for face, A for arms. What you do now is ask the person to lift their right arm, okay? So lift their right arm, okay? So let the person will carry out your instruction, will try to lift the right arm. If they are able to lift the right arm, well and good. Now ask the person to lift the left arm. If they are able to lift the left arm, well and good. If they are not able to lift any of the arms, but they are trying to lift, then it could be because of a stroke, right? It could be because the brain is giving that instruction, but it is not really reaching that part, right? Then very simple stuff, ask the person to smile. Okay, F stands for smile. Okay, now it's a very simple thing. If I just ask Yajna to smile, I say, Yajna, why don't you smile? You're just going to smile, right?
Yes,
Now
sir.
the person having a stroke, you ask the person to smile, the person is unable to smile. Okay, or the person is trying to smile, and that's when you see the further droop in the lips, right? Now that could be a symptom of a stroke. Then T of FAST stands for the fact that it's time to call for an ambulance. Okay, so this is a simple FAST test for stroke. F for face, A for arms, S for smile, and T for time to call the ambulance. It's important to remember that if a person had any of these symptoms, right, the person needs to be taken to a stroke center within 3 hours. 3 to 6 hours is what? 3 to 4.5 hours is best. Okay, because if you are able to take the person to a stroke center within this time, there is a huge possibility that the person can be completely recovered without much damage, 99%. Okay, so otherwise, as a first response, there is very less we can do other than triggering the ambulance mechanism at the earliest and ensuring that the person reaches a stroke center. Why do I say a specifically stroke center? Not all hospitals are stroke centers. It is important to know which is a stroke center. Now, because you did a FAST test, when you call an ambulance, right, you can tell the ambulance people that you did a FAST test and the FAST test is a failure, and so you suspect stroke. This is a very vital piece of information to the ambulance system, whether it is 108 or whether it is any private hospital, because they will now know that they are going to be handling a stroke patient or a stroke victim, and they will now be ready to take the person straight to a stroke hospital or a stroke center rather than a general hospital.
Right, sir. So what can be immediately done as first aid?
Yeah. So as I said, there's very little, when a stroke is happening, reading the scene and suspecting stroke is the biggest value add a responder can do. Okay. Most times you are like, people fail to recognize this early. So as I said, they are not taken to a stroke center within 3 hours. And thereby what happens after that is that part of the brain gets damaged. And because that part of the brain gets damaged, it might lead even to a paralysis or speech impairment, so on and so forth. So the biggest first aid you can do is to read the situation at the earliest and trigger the ambulance system. And as I said, giving this information of fast to an ambulance system or a hospital, that's a very, very vital piece of information. Even if you can just do this much, that's huge impact on the person. You can save the person's life.
Right. So now, what is the first aid treatment for a burn injury?
Okay, first aid for a burn injury. Um, See, the burn is different levels of damage is possible based on the exposure to the fire that caused the burn. The burns are categorized into first degree or a second degree or a third degree burn. Okay, first degree burns are generally are not too much of a severe burns. They are like very minimal exposure to heat rather than not even fire. They just got exposed to a hot surface. That could be as simple as in the kitchen you touch the cooker by mistake, a hot cooker by mistake, or you're riding a bike, right? Or your hand or your feet touches the silencer when it is hot, right? So this is a very brief moment of exposure to the hot surface that can cause first degree burns, right? Or you're ironing your clothes and then you expose yourself to the hot side of the iron, right? So these are first degree burns, right? For this, not much. A very, very simple thing is this won't last too long. But the best thing you can do is expose that part of the body to flowing, running water temperature. Okay, you have to like open the tap and just if you're having a burn here, right? Open the tap and show it under running water. The key here is the water has to be running. It shouldn't be stagnant water. Water has this capacity to, as it flows, it takes away the heat. Okay, so it doesn't, if you ask me, is it the same as having a bucket of water and dipping your hand into the water? No, that does not really help. Flowing water helps. Okay, so put your hand under the tap so that the flowing water takes away the heat. Once the heat is taken away, just allow it to cool for some time. For cooling, you can do some remedial small measures. You can even apply some basic oil, or you can apply some antiseptic burn lotions you have the across the counter you get, or your home remedy you can use batter, you can use turmeric for cooling, right? So that the itching sensation or the burning sensation is not there. So this is only for first degree burns, very minimal exposure. The skin is still intact. Okay, the second degree burn and third degree burn is a few layers of skin is more exposed. In a second degree burn, it is like the flesh is probably seen, right? In those cases, water should not be used too much. Water should be used only to the extent of putting the fire off. After you have put the fire off, then you have to immediately rush the victim to the hospital for further treatment. In that case, do not apply anything. Don't apply oil. Don't apply turmeric. Don't apply any lotion unless you are advised by a professional, right? So that's for second degree burn. Third degree burns are severe, right? It goes deep. It cuts across all the layers of skin, and it generally happens in large accidents, right? Fire accidents, right? There are many techniques for it. A simple technique is called stop, drop, and roll, right? You stop the person, you drop the person to the ground, and you roll the person, covering him with a blanket, and you roll the person to put off the fire. You don't use water at all in a third degree burn, right? So the water is used. The water also actually we think it is small. When there is no fire, it is okay. When there is fire, water sometimes not really puts off the fire. It only aggravates the fire sometimes, right? So don't use. You can use gas. You probably use sand, right? So stop, drop, roll is a very good technique. Usually they are done by firemen. It calls in for a lot of training to do those within handling fire. But the first and second degree burns, as I said, simple running water, using some home remedies will do the trick.
Right, sir. And is applying toothpaste or red chili powder effective first aid?
Okay, toothpaste or red chili powder. I would advise no. Okay, because there is a lot of theory around this. Some people say yes, some people say no, and stuff like that. Right? Toothpaste. People have generally been more embracing of that fact, embracing of that technique for bites, insect bites. Okay, for very small, minimal itching, because some menthol in it sort of might help. Okay, but I would suggest avoid it. Right, not only even for insect bites, even for burns, definitely avoid any of these, because they can aggravate inflammation, and it can aggravate your itching and burning sensation. It's best to keep away from all of those.
Okay, sir. And sir, for my last question, sometimes when an accident or a road mishap occurs, people aren't the quickest to help, even though they are well informed of what needs to be done. What could some of the factors be for this?
Yeah, very right. A significant question, and that's exactly what Alert is here to propagate and do, and ensure that lives are saved in public scenes. Basically, there are, see, way back when we started Alert, we did this as a proper survey. We went back to our company and did a survey as to what stops somebody in a public scene to go forward and help somebody. It is not the case when you know the person in your home, or you know your colleague in the office, or when you know your friend in the college. But somebody on the road, there is always a inhibition to go forward and help. Now, when we did this survey, we found that fundamentally there are two blockers, right? Fundamentally two issues. One is basically people don't know what to do, right? Fundamental issue of knowledge. Okay, now if I know something well, then I have more confidence to do it. In the absence of me not knowing what to do, I would better keep off, right? I would not want to go further, make the situation bad, and all of that. So first is a fundamental problem of awareness, knowledge. Don't know what to do. I don't want to get into the scene and end up baddening, worsening the scene even further. So this is a stopper. This is something which can be addressed by giving the knowledge, giving the awareness, making them go through sessions, right? Like what we are doing now. The second aspect is inhibitions caused because of wrong experiences. When I say wrong experiences, for example, in our society, the judicial system or the legal systems have not been very encouraging for a person to come forward and help. When I say that, it means like when you help somebody on the road, most times the experience is like, I got detained by the police asked me wrong questions, right? I had to run to the courts after that to prove myself that I did it only in good intention, and those kind of things, right? And because of which, right from childhood, we would have been told culturally by our parents and elders that no, don't get into those scenes, keep away from such scenes, right? So it's from the time of independence, the system around us has not been very encouraging to do those things. So these are two major stoppers. Now Alert is focused on addressing both these stoppers. The number one, by disseminating knowledge through awareness, training programs, large scale campaigns, through next generation methods, e-learning, through radio channels, FM channels, and many such more. The Alert Simulation Lab in Emergency Response Management in Chennai does that very effectively. Second aspect is working with the policymakers, working with the influencers, working with the government, right, to sort of ensure that the system encourages people to come forward and help, right? In that I'm very glad to share that there is something called Good Samaritan law, right? That got effected uh, by in 2016, and it became a law in 2019, right? Passed by the Lok Sabha of the country, right? The means it passed as a bill in the Lok Sabha. The Good Samaritan law is a law that protects a Good Samaritan. Who is a Good Samaritan? Good Samaritan is anybody like you and me who is wanting to come forward and help the person in need, help a person in an accident, help a person who had a cardiac arrest, help a person who is having a fainted suddenly on the road, right? He is a Good Samaritan because only intent is to help, right? So for that, countries like US, UK, France, Australia, they have something called Good Samaritan laws. I mean, India, Good Samaritan law did not exist. So Alert has been one of the organizations that has been working towards the clauses and wanting the Good Samaritan law to become a reality, and it finally became a reality last year, right? So what does this Good Samaritan law say? I have very five key points that you all can take away. Whoever is listening to this is, by under law now it's a legislated law. This is a law of the land. Okay, under this law, which is it states that you have total protection from the police. Okay, when you say total protection, it's like the police will support you when you do this. Okay, The police will not harass you. The police will not ask you questions. The police will not ask you for any no, you will not be dragged to courts, all the subsequent actions that come. It's a total protection from the police. Number two, no detention at hospitals, right? Now, another major issue is, I help somebody, I take the person to a hospital. Now the hospital says you are the one who brought him, right? Or him or her. So you be here, they detain you. They say, so there is an inhibition of, I don't have that much time. I was just a passerby. I helped somebody, took him to the hospital, and then I have my work to do, right? So the law now clearly says that no detention at hospitals. And hospitals have a fundamental duty to give basic first aid, right? Give basic stabilization of the victim. They are not expected to be treated, but give basic first aid, give basic stabilization so that the person stays alive. Number two, no detention at hospitals. Number three, no liability to pay the bills. Okay. Another stopper is that, you only brought him to the hospital, then you pay the bill, right? So that's the usual experience people have had, right? No liability to pay those bills. When I say pay those bills, the law is not expecting the hospital to treat. Meaning, when I say treat, go do a bypass surgery free of cost. No, that's not the case. But you can give him CPR and ensure that CPR is basic first aid, for which nobody can be forced to pay bills, right? No liability to pay the bill. Okay. So as a helper, it's a law is protecting me when I do that. I don't have to pay. I'm not liable to pay the bills as a person who as a good Samaritan. Number four, no compulsion to disclose identity. You don't have to produce your Aadhaar card. You don't have to produce your ID card and say, I am so and so. No, not required. Okay. So you cannot be forced to produce your identity. Last but not the least, fifth point under Good Samaritan law, no criminal or civil liability will be on you. Okay. In case, because of you went and helped, let's say, the person went to the hospital but did not make it, or the person had some other eventuality, then there will be no civil case or a criminal case put against you. You were a good Samaritan who really came with a good intention to help. Okay. So 5 important points, like total protection from police, no detention at hospitals, no liability to pay bills, no compulsion to disclose identity, no civil or criminal liability. So if at all an FIR is required to be filed and all that, right? Now, if you are willing, sometimes FIR is required so that even the victim can get his insurance, right? He can get his insurance money, right? So in that best interest, out of your willingness, if you think that, okay, it's fine for you to file an FIR so that he gets his insurance, go ahead and do it. Even in that, you cannot be forced to disclose your identity. Okay. So this is a great thing that has happened in our country last year. Alert has had a role to play in making the Good Samaritan law a reality. And today we are in the trying to ensure that more and more people are aware about the Good Samaritan law. And all our volunteers who get trained, they are heavily also trained in all these aspects. We call them VOICE, VOICE, VOICE standing for volunteers in case of emergency. We train them intensely and put them on a network driven by a mobile app called VOICE, Alert VOICE. Okay. So just like how you can book a Ola or a Uber, you can book or you can call for a first responder who is a VOICE. We are doing that in Chennai right now. So that until the professional help arrives, you will find a voice who is probably half a kilometer away, who will come to the scene and handle the scene for you. And this has been rated the top 120 social initiatives to watch out for by the National University of Singapore. So these are all some good things. So the world is changing, India is changing. I just want to drive home the point that no more. The reason now cannot be I am afraid. I will be afraid that I will be dragged into the courts and police. It's a question of do I know what to do? Get yourself trained, know more about the legalities that protect you, go forward and help and save people.
Right, sir. Sir, so thank you so much for joining us today. This has been a very informative session about medical emergencies, and I hope more and more people learn from it.
Thank you, Agnya. Thanks for giving me this opportunity. Thanks for giving Alert this opportunity. We hope that through this we will reach out to many more people. Very be glad to also train all your students at the college at BITS, and anybody who viewing this program, you can always reach out. There is always every Saturday there is an online session that happens that teaches basic fundamental first aid at Alert. Just go to alert.ngo and you'll get all the information. You could like us in all our handles, which is again alert.ngo. That's all in all the LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, and so all the Insta handles. So we are here. The goal given by Dr. Kalam is one in every family, and that translates into 125 crore families in India. 125 crore people in India, which means about 25 crore families is what we need to target. It cannot happen by one organization. It can happen only if we all can join hands together. So for your family, you become the trained responder. Then we can worry about the society. So we will strongly urge you to reach out to us. We will give all the knowledge that you require.
Thank you so much, sir.